Did you know Canadian English isn't fully British or fully American, but something completely unique? In this video, we'll explore the fascinating history of Canadian English, from Indigenous languages and French rivalry to loyalists, immigration, and the accent we hear today. Stay tuned, because this story might surprise you.
The history of Canadian English. 1. Before English, Indigenous languages, pre-1600s. Much before English or French arrived, the land we now call Canada was home to hundreds of Indigenous nations. They spoke over 60 distinct language families, including Cree, Ojibwe, Mohawk, Inuktitut, and many more. These languages shaped the landscape. Many Canadian place names, Toronto, Ottawa, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, come directly from Indigenous words. Indigenous rhythms and sounds later influenced certain Indigenous varieties of English, sometimes called Aboriginal English or First Nations English dialects. At this stage, English was absent. 2. The first waves of English, 1600s. 1759. The first Europeans to settle were the French, early 1600s, in Quebec. English came later, mainly with British colonists in Newfoundland and the Maritimes. Newfoundland English, still distinct today, has strong roots in West Country English and Irish English. For a long time, French dominated much of Canada, while English was stronger in certain coastal colonies. 3. The British conquest and English expansion, 1759 to 1800. In 1759, after the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, Britain defeated France and took control of New France, Quebec. English became the language of government and power. Still, French persisted in Quebec, creating Canada's bilingual foundation. British settlers, especially from Scotland, Ireland, and England, brought their dialects. By the end of the 18th century, English was firmly established alongside French. 4. The Loyalists and the American Revolution, 1776 to 1820. A turning point, after the American Revolution, 1776, about 40,000 Loyalists, colonists loyal to Britain, fled the United States and moved to Canada. They settled in Ontario, then Upper Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. They brought with them American English dialects, especially from New England and the Mid-Atlantic. This heavily influenced Canadian English, making it closer to American English than to British English. Key point, Canadian English became a blend of British and American varieties, with a loyalist stamp on it. 5. 19th century, immigration and westward expansion, 1820 to 1900. The 1800s saw mass immigration from Britain, Scottish Highlanders, Irish, English. Each group influenced regional accents. Irish settlers influenced Newfoundland and the Maritimes. Scottish settlers shaped accents in Cape Breton and parts of Ontario. The building of the railway and settlement of the West brought diverse groups into contact, leveling dialects. By the late 19th century, Canadian English was distinct from both American and British, but it leaned phonologically closer to the U.S. 6. Confederation and Identity, 1867. 1914. In 1867, Canada became a confederation. The English language became one of the official symbols of the young nation, alongside French. The Canadian accent was seen as neutral compared to both British prestige and American nasal speech. Newspapers, schools, and later the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, worked to standardize Canadian English spelling and pronunciation. 7. World Wars and Cultural Shift 1914 to 1945. Canada fought alongside Britain in both World Wars. This reinforced cultural and linguistic ties with Britain. However, because of constant proximity to the U.S., Canadian English continued absorbing Americanisms in pronunciation and vocabulary. Canadian spelling settled as a hybrid system. British spellings, color, center, check. American spellings, tire, program, analyze. By WWII's end, Canadian English was widely recognized as its own variety. 8. The rise of Canadian English. Identity, 1945 to 1980. After World War II, immigration diversified. Italians, Germans, Ukrainians, Chinese. English remained dominant outside Quebec, but became increasingly multicultural. The CBC in Canadian publishing promoted a standard form of Canadian English, which linguists call Standard Canadian English. Meanwhile, distinct accents persisted. Newfoundland English, Irish influenced. Maritime English, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Prairie English, influenced by German, Ukrainian. Inland Canadian English, Ontario. Prairies, BC. The Standard. 9. Canadian English in the Global Era. 1980, today. Canadian English today is characterized by Canadian raising vowels in about. Sound like a boat, house like hose. A discourse marker at the end of sentences, nice day, tendency towards American pronunciation, but with uniquely Canadian vowel shifts. Hybrid spelling, British plus American. Mix. Media influence, Canadian actors often sound neutral, Ryan Reynolds, Keanu Reeves, Rachel McAdams, because Canadian English is often mistaken for accentless North American English. However, regional identities remain strong, especially in Newfoundland, the Maritimes, and Indigenous English varieties. 10. The future of Canadian English. With growing immigration from Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, new multicultural varieties of English are emerging in Canadian cities. Toronto English, Vancouver English. French remains strong in Quebec, meaning Canada will likely remain bilingual. Canadian English may continue to be perceived internationally as a neutral North American English, but linguists predict stronger regional distinctions in multicultural urban centers. White heavy checkmark in summary. Canadian English is the product of Indigenous roots, French rivalry, Loyalist migrations, British and Irish influence, American proximity, and multicultural immigration. It is neither fully British nor fully American, but a unique hybrid, reflecting Canada's history, geography, and identity.
Now you know the story of the Australian English accent, a voice shaped by history, identity, and culture. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more stories about language and culture, and share it with a friend who loves accents as much as you do. See you in the next video.